Only on CBS This Morning. Oprah just revealed on CBS This Morning her latest book club pick. And Oprah has agreed to stay with us to join us because you're so psyched about the book.
I'm so psyched about the book. It's called The Sun Does Shine, How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row. I couldn't sleep, really. You know, I was so excited about telling everybody about this book, and I want everybody to go out and get this book so that I don't have...
It tells the story of...
It tells the story of Anthony Ray Hinton, 30 years on death row for crimes he did not commit until he was released in 2015.
But we should talk... We're having a little technical issue at CBS.
We're having more than a technical issue.
So we have to pass the microphone like they did back in 1952. So please bear with us. This is Anthony Ray Hinton. The reason why Oprah was so excited, because she normally doesn't pick memoirs, but you were falsely accused for 30 years. And why this story is so extraordinary, you were accused of what exactly?
I was accused of 2 capital murder and crimes that they knew that I didn't commit. And so it took 30 years before I got my release.
Not only did they know you didn't commit it, but he had passed a polygraph test, Oprah. What else happened? Why this was so egregious?
Well, it was so egregious because the state of Alabama accused him of doing something that they didn't have any evidence for. They went back to the house and got the gun that, an old gun that his mother had had and hadn't been fired for 25 years. The defense attorney paid some guy off the street to be a ballistics expert. And
who was legally blind in one eye.
Yes, and who you know, was not qualified to do anything, not to mention be a ballistics expert. And in that moment, Mr. Hinton realized that you were going to lose that trial, correct?
Yes.
And I just
I knew they were going to find me guilty of capital murder.
Yeah.
But you knew that because...
Even though you passed the polygraph test.
The prosecution talked to the judge, and it was not permissible to be used.
They wouldn't allow it.
They wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
And so the agreement was, before I took it, if I passed, I could use it. If I failed, the prosecution would use it.
And you passed it.
And I passed it. And let me say, an FBI agent gave it to me, gave me the polygraph
And
test.
that guy said...
And he said at the end, this man don't know anything about these murderers. And if I can go by this polygraph, I would take him out of this jail tonight.
Yeah. But what happened, Mr. Hinton? They just basically decided that these 2 murders had occurred. It had upset the community. And
somebody was going to pay.
Yeah. The thing that got me was the fact that I can't imagine what this angle looks like right now. But the thing that got me,
live TV, we like it.
Like in my nostrils. But the thing that got me is that they knew he didn't do it, but they wanted to make the community feel better. And when he went to his own defense attorney, and you said to your defense attorney, would it make any difference to you if I told you I was innocent? He said, the problem with that statement, y'all always are doing something.
Y'all.
Referring to blacks. Y'all are always,
know that part, yes.
always doing something and then saying you didn't do it. And this is the man that I had to rely on to represent me.
Yeah, didn't he say, is this the same man that said, if you didn't do it, one of your homies did?
Well, the detective said that arrested me. He said, Mr. Hinton, I truly believe you didn't do it. But y'all always taking up for one another. Take this rap for your homeboy.
Yeah, and one of them also said, listen, you're going to be convicted. Why?
He said, because there's 5 things that's going to convict you. First, because you're black. Second, because a white man is going to say you shot him. Whether you shot him or not, I really don't care. He said, and thirdly, you're going to have a white prosecutor. Fourth, you're going to have a white judge. And fifth, you're going to have an all-white jury.
But you still kept thinking, I'm going to get out because I didn't do this.
Absolutely. I wanted to believe that the justice system didn't work that way. I had never been convicted or been involved in anything serious like that. And so I just didn't believe that they was more in tune to finding the true killer. I didn't just think they wanted to put someone to ease the business community, and they wanted to make the business community feel safe again.
You just did.
What happened? Keep going.
It's actually working better without the microphone.
Okay.
So how do you hold on to hope when you've been sentenced? It took 2 hours for the trial, 2 hours, and then 2 hours for deliberations, and then 45 minutes you're convicted to death. How do you hold on to hope when you've already gone this far? Because you're thinking they'll never convict me.
Yes.
I certainly won't be sentenced to death. How do you hold on to hope knowing that you know you shouldn't have been there?
Well, it's the way that I was brought up. My mother brought me up through faith, told me that God can do everything but fail. And at that moment, I realized
do everything but fail.
I love that.
that I thought that, okay, they're going to find out. And I truly believe that they was going to look at this more and say, hey, Mr. Hinton, we made a mistake. But as time went on, and once the judge sentenced me to death, I got to death row.
Mr. Hinton, tell them about the moment you're in the courtroom and you hear the guilty verdict. I thought this was so interesting because the whole time you're reading this book, you can't help but put yourself in his shoes and think about what would this mean for me.
We'd also like to take your questions if you have something for Oprah or Mr. Hinton. Go ahead, Oprah.
Yeah, I was thinking about what would I do? First of all, I wouldn't have been able to survive the way you did. And I have great faith in God.
You don't think you could survive?
No. The reason I couldn't survive is because the cell was 5 by 7.
Yes.
No windows.
No windows, obviously, on death row. And you don't see a tree or a blade of grass. Right. I actually could not survive without seeing something in nature that I wouldn't make it. I was just looking at concrete my whole life. But the fact that when you were sentenced, that you said that you went blind for a moment, I think I would too.
And you didn't speak.
No.
You didn't
speak. Didn't speak for 3 years.
For 3 years, you didn't say a word.
When they said, I sentence you to death, and I looked back and I knew my niece was back there behind me. And at that moment, my eyesight was gone. I didn't know who she was, and I just had to sit down, and I sat down, and my eyesight came back for that moment, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I don't even to this day know how to explain the feeling, the sadness, the disappointment, and I felt
despair,
that,
the despair.
Everything that my mom taught me, and I know my mom would never lie to me, and I kept saying, where were you, God?
Yeah.
Where was you when I needed you?
You know what else you said in the book about your mother? You said your mom would say, how are you doing? You told her, I'm fine, everything's good, they're treating me real good.
Yes.
You said sometimes you believe it's important to tell a lie to protect the person that you love.
Absolutely.
And to be kind to the person.
I did.
You lied to her repeatedly to say.
And I lied to her to protect her because I know she would protect me. And I kept wondering, and I asked Lester, I said, is Mama okay? And he said, I still think she's in shock. And I began to believe she was trying to act as though everything was normal to protect me in the way she knew how I loved and cared about.
One of the things that really struck me so much is I did an interview with Mr. Hinton that's going to be on Super Soul this coming Sunday, and you said you really believe your mother died of a broken heart.
Yes, she did. I truly believe that. And
she didn't get to see you free. She died 2002?
Yes.
And for years she would come to prison and say, when you coming home,
yes.
baby?
Yeah.
When you
That's the
coming
only
home?
question she had. When they gonna let you go? And I said, Mom, they're working on it. I'll be home soon, and soon ended up 30 years.
Yeah, because you went to prison
86.
1986.
Yes.
And she died in 2002, so
And
she never got to see you free.
And when I got word that she had died, I told Brian Stevenson, I don't give a damn about this case. And I hung up on him, and I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't. It was as though my mother came in that cell and just got in my head and said, I'm very disappointed that you're willing to give up. And
You heard your mom say, I didn't
Yes.
raise a quitter.
yes.
What is amazing about
You have some questions?
Before you do the questions, can I just say what's amazing about those 30 years? You know, Gayle and I have been friends now for, I think,
40 something.
Oh,
Since
God.
we were 21 and 22. 63 and
Okay,
64.
okay, guys, okay. We've been friends a long time, and the whole time I was reading about Lester, I thought Lester is your Gayle.
Yes, yes.
And Lester, because this is what Gayle would do for me, I know.
I would. You would do it for me, too.
I would do it for you. I might have missed a weekend. But for, you know, I actually might have missed a weekend.
I wouldn't have missed a week.
I know you would not have missed a week.
Yes, I would
For
not.
30 years, Lester,
Are you showing
his
Lester?
best friend,
Yeah.
his best friend Lester, for 30 years
Since they were 6 and 4 years old.
have been best friends, and he never missed a weekend of coming to see him in prison. Lester, you are...
Why, Lester, you never missed a week? Why?
I couldn't fathom, you know, not being with him. It's bad enough when you talk to someone day in and day out.
Yeah.
And to not be around him, you know, it was just
And you never doubted his innocence ever.
No, it never
Ever.
questioned. The conversation never came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole time, you know.
And when you all read the book, you'll see it's so ridiculous. He was at work. He was clocked in.
Had an
at work,
alibi.
He had an alibi. It was a white man. You thought that because your boss, your supervisor was
Yes.
white,
Oh,
you thought, oh my God, yeah.
I
The white
said-
man will tell them the truth.
I said, thank God.
Yes, thank God it's a white
I said,
supervisor.
oh, my supervisor is white. Go to him and he would tell you. They come back and say, we got good news and bad news. The good news, we no longer going to charge you for this, but we decided that we're going to charge you for this. And that supervisor couldn't say anything for those new charges. He couldn't say he was working, and that's how they come.
But just the gun that hadn't been fired for 25 years, it clearly couldn't have been the murder weapon. That wasn't enough. Passing the polygraph, that wasn't enough.
No.
Having an alibi, that wasn't enough. So enter Brian Stevenson, who has to be an angel among angels for you.
He's my hero.
Oprah, talk about Brian Stevenson.
Brian C.
because-
Stevenson founded the Equal Justice Institute in Montgomery, Alabama, and he has spent his life freeing people from not just death row, but freeing them from situations where there's evidence that they were falsely accused.
Yeah.
And he is a big part of the fight for equal justice in this country and to fight mass incarceration. And
He said, too, about your story that no stories affected him, the way
yes.
this one. The same
Yes.
thing that Oprah said.
And in his book, Just Mercy, he begins his book talking about the case with Anthony Ray Hinton. He is an angel among
Yes.
angels.
Oh,
He
yes.
is. He is.
If it wasn't for EJI, I truly believe the state of Alabama had every intention, and it was just waiting on the date from the Supreme Court
Yeah.
to execute.
Yeah.
And they knew that I was innocent. We begged the state of Alabama to re-examine the bullets. And I often ask people why they didn't re-examine them. Because they already knew that the bullets didn't match.
They've never apologized to you. And from the state of Alabama's point of view, you're still a guilty man.
Yes, yes,
They've never apologized to you.
yes, yes.
Yeah. I want the state of Alabama to apologize.
Yes.
That is what I want,
Yes.
is the state of Alabama to apologize. And I want people to buy this book and read this book and understand that there are hundreds and thousands of Anthony Ray Hintons out there in the mass incarceration system that deserve the opportunity for justice.
But before we go, there's so many compelling stories, we keep saying that. But Henry Hayes is a white man who's on death row with you, a former Klansman.
Yes.
You don't know that he's white, but you always say compassion has no color.
The reason you don't know he's white is because when you're on death row, you
can't
see each other. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Henry went out and did something heinous. And Henry never did.
Killed a
deny that.
19-year-old black.
Yes. And Henry lynched.
Yeah.
a
And cut off his
19-year-old black.
genitals.
Yes.
Very heinous.
Yes.
He was the first white man convicted in 81
Yes,
years in the
yes.
state of Alabama for killing a black
Yes,
man.
yes. And when Henry came and, we began to talk, and I didn't see his color and any of that, but I realized that Henry had been cheated in life. His mother and father taught him to hate from the day he was conceived. His neighborhood taught him to hate and conceive. And I often wonder, when Henry went to school, he had to use words that would make the teachers say he being taught racist. But if you go to school with a whip on your mark, the teachers by law have to call the authority. And they will remove that child from that home. And I often wonder, when I got to know Hayes, why didn't the authority, DHR, go and protect this child? Well, society say that it takes a village to raise a child. What was this village when Hayes was being mentally abused? And so what we did on death row, I began to teach Hayes about love. And I truly believe that just as you program to hate, you can be deprogrammed to love. And so we taught Hayes and we showed Hayes love and we respected Hayes. We never did judge Hayes because every man that was there accused and being convicted of a heinous crime.
Yeah. That's why you say there's no racism on death row.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I love most, on the night of Henry execution, they asked you two things. What would you like to have for your last meal? And what would you like to say? And the night of his execution, Hayes ate an 8-ounce steak, and he said, all of my life, I've been taught to hate. The very people that I've been taught to hate are the very people that taught me what love is all about.
All my life he's been taught to hate black people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And he said, tonight I leave this world knowing what true love feel like. And they put Hayes to death.
Yeah.
And I know that if he could have been reached on death row, imagine if someone had tried to reach him earlier. And I think society bears responsibility as well.
So
does
you feel
shine.
passionate about this book. You want to do what? Because I said before you came, Mr. Hinton, that I have not seen her as excited about a book since Color Purple, where she said, I will literally pass a book out to strangers on the street.
Yeah.
I've never seen her as excited about a book.
Because I
as she
think
was
it's an
about you.
important time in our culture and our history
In our
for people
culture,
to
yeah.
understand what it means to be on death row and what it means to say, yeah, give him the death sentence,
Yes.
when a quarter of the people who are there should not actually
Absolutely.
be there.
Absolutely.
And
Is it a quarter?
Yeah,
Oh,
when-
yes.
yes.
Quarter?
And when there's also such injustices when you are poor and a person of color, Black, Hispanic, and you cannot afford to have lawyers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's better to be guilty and rich.
Yeah,
than
better be
poor
guilty and rich than
innocent.
poor and innocent. And so that's why I think this book is so important. And you are a symbol for all of the people who deserved to be set free.
Thank you.
Are you issuing a challenge?
Yes, well, this is what I'm hoping, is that everybody will read the book, and then you'll really have a lot of questions for Lester and for Mr. Hinton. And we're going to come together again in late June. We'll let you know when that is. And I'm going to invite you, Lester, and you, Mr. Hinton, to Maui,
Wow.
where I was going to be vacationing,
Okay.
but let's vacation together.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Vacation.
I want to
together.
come.
Absolutely.
I want to come.
And then we'll do a Facebook Live.
You didn't say, Gail, you can come too. You're like,
you can
and then
come.
blah, blah,
And
blah,
then-
blah.
and then-
I want to
we'll
come.
do a Facebook Live.
Yes.
We'll do a Facebook Live from my front yard. Okay,
Absolutely.
let's do that. Or would you
In
say
Hawaii.
yes to that?
I'd be glad
And then
to.
we'll take all of your questions.
Do you have one question before we go, Brandon?
Did any of your guards believe you were innocent?
Yes.
Did any of your guards believe you were innocent?
I would actually say 90% of the guards. When Mr. Stevenson would come to the prison,
Brian Stevenson.
they would ask him, what can I do to help you get
Help
him
him.
out of here?
Yeah.
Because he don't belong here.
Yeah. You know, just before, I said this on CBS this morning, that Gayle and I were talking about the book, because when I really like a book, I get excited. And I was like, have you read it yet, Amber?
Yeah.
And so as she was preparing for this morning show, she was saying, gosh, I really like Mr. Hinton.
Yeah, I did.
Why do I like Mr. Hinton so much?
Why do I like
Gayle
Mr.
and I had the honor and pleasure of spending a lot of time with Nelson Mandela before he died. And I remember the time we were sitting at the table and your son Will said, can you pass the peas?
Yeah, it's a
And I said, Will, you're going to
Mandela.
remember this moment when you're saying, pass the peas.
He did say, please.
Please pass the peas
Yes.
to Nelson Mandela. So we spent a lot of time with Nelson Mandela. And one of the things that you recognize when you're immediately in the presence of Nelson Mandela is his goodness and his kindness and the fact that, and his grace, the fact that he spent 27 years in prison and invited the guards to his inauguration. Anthony Ray Hinton has the spirit of Nelson Mandela, one of the first people I've ever met who is actually a gentle man who has that spirit of grace and kindness and forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
And forgiveness. That you can spend 30 years on death row and know
Innocent, yeah.
that you were innocent and not have the state of Alabama apologize to you, but you come out with no bitterness.
Why do you have that? No
I think
bitterness and-
bitterness kills the soul. And I truly believe that those men in the state of Alabama did this for whatever their reason did it. I cannot sit back and wait on an apology. I have a life that I want to live.
But you lost so much of your life.
I did, and I have gained so much. And the same, I didn't forgive those men so they could sleep good at night. I forgave them so I could sleep good at night. And so I think that I deserve that, to sleep good at night.
You
And so,
deserve that and even more, Mr.
Yeah.
Hinton.
Thank you.
Deserve that. The sun does shine. Y'all, please buy this book so I don't have to go stand out on the corner and sell
Where
it.
can they find it? Everyone's asking where they can
Where
find
Where
it.
can you find it? At wherever you buy books. Wherever you buy books.
Amy's going everywhere. Wherever you
Everywhere.
like to buy your books.
Wherever you like to buy
Everywhere.
your